I want to welcome everyone and say hello, hi. I'm Caro. If you haven't met me, if we haven't had the pleasure of meeting each other yet, I want to say g'day and hi from the country that I'm on here, which is Gundungurra and Darug country up in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales. And I want to say hi and acknowledge the country and the elders and ancestors of the places that you're coming from as well, and pay my respects. So it's great to have you all here. I want to kick off and let you know who this is for. So who's going to benefit from tonight? Because there is, when you think about the world of navigation, it can feel quite overwhelming, like there is a lot to learn. But in some ways I actually think there's not actually so much to learn. There's just a lot of opportunity for practice to happen, and it's by practicing the basics and the principles and the concepts that you actually get more confident and you learn to really navigate by practicing. So I will talk a little bit about that. So if anyone's tried road gaining, I will talk on that too later a bit. It's a fantastic sport and a way of practicing and getting better at your navigation. So, but who is tonight for? Tonight is really aimed at people who feel like that navigation is either something they have no concept of, or they're confused by, or they've maybe felt overwhelmed by it in the past when someone's tried to teach them, or they've tried to learn, or pretty classic another one would be maybe you learnt to nav back in, I don't know, scouts or guides or Duke of Ed at school, and it was a long time ago, and you're thinking, well, I really just want to remind myself of some things. So that's who tonight is for. So let's look at what we're going to cover. Yeah, so old school, hey? I love old school. I love the tactile nature of paper, and nobody wants a more PowerPoint presentations or Teams slides in their world, right? So I love paper. Here's actually what I cover in my course, right? So that's the 2-day course. But I'm going to use it as a foundation for what we're going to look at tonight. Alrighty, so yes, introduction to nav, that's what we're here for. Introduction done, tick, we're moving on. Maps. Oh, who loves maps? Do you love maps? I don't know about you, but I love maps. We're going to talk about maps, right? We're going to talk about grid lines and grid references. What are they? Why do we need them? And we're going to talk about a system that we use here too. Now, when I say we, and in terms of who this is for, I don't know where in the world you might be listening from, but for those of you who know me, yes, I'm here, as I said, in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales, Australia, and in line with, and I can't promote the book because I'm out of stock at the moment, but it's all about navigating in Australia. So even though the concepts are the same the world over, all of the examples and all of the maps that I'll refer to in different things will be, in the Australian kind of way. So back to, we talked about grid lines. We're going to talk about, I'm going to have to do that, aren't I? Contours and landforms, reading those lumpy, bumpy, dippy shapes in this amazing world around us. I'm going to talk briefly about time and distance. Then we're going to talk about compasses. Oh, don't get scared. Might even talk about the 3 norths. We might be running out of time for that though, because like I said, this is only going to be probably for about an hour, but knowing me, I will probably go way over. So if you can bear with me, I apologize in advance. We're going to talk about taking a bearing with our compass. And there's 3 different ways of taking a bearing. We're only just going to cover the first one because you know what? If you're only going to learn one, it's probably the one you're going to use the most. And then all that other kind of stuff, that's more for when we've got more time to chat. And then there's even stuff on the other page, but that's things like putting it into practice, estimating how far you've actually travelled, all that kind of stuff. So for tonight, we're going to keep just to the basics, all right? One thing I want to address, and I mentioned it earlier, is that everybody's sort of got pop that back up. Everybody's got a nav story. And it's, by that I mean kind of the baggage they bring to navigation. So if people are willing to share some of their thoughts, I'd love to maybe see some stories in the comments. So some people might say, oh, look, you know, someone tried to teach me once and I was in a group and I kind of was starting to get the concept, and then it was all too hard and I felt like I was holding up the group and I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to put the group out. So I kind of didn't really learn, or I got lost once and I had a bad experience and now I feel like, I'll never get a hold of it. Or another thing, and I haven't mentioned this yet, maybe you're someone who loves navigating with apps and digital apps and maps. And I am not going to look down on that at all, because I use apps as well in particular circumstances. In fact, and again, I'm sorry, I don't want this to sound pluggy and salesy at all, because it's not meant to be, but the reason the book is currently out of print is that I am, and I know I've been saying this for a couple of months, I'm really behind on my deadline, but I'm doing the 3rd edition and it's going to include, or it does currently include, because it's sitting with the designer now, a chapter on navigating with apps and digital navigation. So what I want to kick off with is to let you know that, and I think some people think that navigation is some sort of dark art, like it's some mystery, it's some sort of alchemy, or it's some, only the wise and the smart, the all-knowing and all-seeing can get the concepts. But actually it's navigation, like if you can learn, and some of it is just learning off by heart, and I've got some ways, some memory joggers to help you remember some of these basic stuff. If you can just get those basic principles down pat, and then just spend time practicing and being out there and putting these things to work, that's where things become more natural. And so one thing to think about is, you know, when you're learning to drive a car, and there's, especially if it was a manual car, right? So there's a lot of different things happening all at once. You've got the gear stick, you've got the clutch, you've got the accelerator, the brake, then you steering wheel, right? Okay, and then indicator on, and oh my gosh, there's traffic, you know. So you've kind of got all these different layers. Daryl, you like Gaia? Yeah, Gaia is my #1 app too, Gaia GPS. So, and Australian Topo Maps app. Yeah, so it's definitely, don't be ashamed of using digital apps. There's a place, but there's something about learning to use the very organic and natural paper, like I said, paper here, ways of navigating that well, this is how I find it. I find that it connects me greater way to the landscape around me. So for me, and there's a concept I'll talk about called nav head, putting on your nav head. And for me, that's about, as you step into a wild place, as you arrive at a trailhead, you kind of put on this sensibility really of how you approach these wild places. How do you feel in these places? Bringing your whole self, because we want to bring, you know, all of ourself, all of our 5 senses into these spaces that we love, these places that we love spending time in, incredible nature, rather than just sort of putting our head down and seeing the track and just walking on the track, and to sort of open up our awareness to the world around us is, I think, the biggest key to being able to navigate. And that is to slow down and to ask yourself, what do I see? What do I really see? And not only what do I see, maybe what do I hear? Because you can hear clues that tell you where you are in nature. You could be hearing maybe a waterfall or a creek. You could be feeling maybe the wind on your cheek. And if you checked the weather forecast, you go, oh, the wind is coming from the west today. Oh, look, that must be west over there. So it sort of brings you into the space in a greater way. So it's all about being calm and measured. So if you're one of these people who gets a bit flappy about stuff when you're trying to learn, my advice is just slow down, Bring yourself back to the basic concepts and be slow and measured, well thought out. Now, I'm going to move right on to maps right away. And we're going to spend more time talking about maps than we are talking about compass. And having paper big maps, yes, Denise, I totally hear you in terms of having that big picture. If you're looking on the screen, that's one of the negatives, I think, of using digital maps. Great thing is it tells you where you are, but you don't feel where you are in the whole landscape, in this incredible wilderness around you. So let's kick into maps, shall we? And here's a controversial thing. I reckon, and I will use a prop, a Blue Mountains map, a New South Wales map, or maybe a Northern Territory map. So now what you might notice is these all look a little bit different. This is a Q topo, if there's anyone from Queensland in the room. It's a Queensland map. And ooh, Lake Pyman. Oh, I'm feeling all very alone Australia with the Lake Pyman map. Maybe just series 1 though. Yeah, a Tassie map from Tasmap. Love the folk at Tasmap. Great customer service. Ooh, Western Australia. The Kimberley region. Look at those colours. They all look different, don't they? So there's all these different maps. And for those, you know who you are in the room. Who doesn't love a sketch map? How good is this? The Dunphy Wild Dogs Gangarang map. So beautiful. You can do it, and here's the potentially controversial thing. You can do a lot with a map, yeah? But there is only a few things you can do with a compass. So I really believe that the strength of navigating is, number one, is that awareness of the space and the world around you, the slowing down to see the shapes and the landforms. Then it's a really solid understanding of map reading, being able to interpret a map. And then the compass is another tool. It's just another tool that you have, because I kind of think, yeah, 80% map, maybe 20% compass. I mean, there are people who can navigate really, really well without ever using a compass, just by using the concept of reading map to ground. Yeah, so that's what you see on the map, to see it represented in the landscape around you. So we're going to talk about how you learn to do that. So maps. What kind of maps do we use for navigating? Well, all those ones I showed you, and I do have a South Australia example, and I didn't bring it up. It's somewhere hidden in this big box of nav stuff at my feet. We use the kind of maps for navigating is topographic map. Now, this comes from the Greek topos graphein. And when you think about it, topos meaning place, you know, the earth, the place, graphein to write. So topos graphein is like writing the story of place. It's the story of place. So one thing I like to say is, if you can read a map, it's like reading a book before you see the movie. It's like you know what you're going to see before you even get there. And then the map just confirms, oh yeah, you are where you think you are. You see it all around you. So topographic maps. Now, I'm going to use as an example. Let's see what we've got here. I will use back to the New South Wales map, sorry. Be interesting actually to know where everyone's from. So if you wouldn't mind just throwing in the comments where you are, if you're in Australia, what state you're in, because that actually, it helps me inform, because maps, the government maps, so all those maps I just showed you then, except this sketch map, they're all put out by the state government agencies for each of those states, except I think the Northern Territory one and the Western Australian one might actually be Geoscience Australia. The most amazing website full of incredible resources, because they put a lot of educational resources out for schools. So if you're learning to navigate or you've got some queries, you can quite often find a lot of tools and resources on their website. And there's some locals to me there. Hey Vicky, Oh, there's Boona, excellent. People there. Stephen, I've got a course in Boona coming up very soon. Again, don't want to make it salesy. So we're going to look at the New South Wales Mount Wilson map, which is an area here in the Blue Mountains. Now, when you're looking to buy a topographic map for Australia, one of the big questions that I get asked a lot is, where can you get topographic maps? Now, I put in some links, featured links, and one of them is where to get topographic maps show. Now, that will now magically appear somewhere in the stream. Yeah, where to get topographic maps for your state or for where you're going to be walking. That's really the more important thing, right? So I will send that link, and it has for each of the states in Australia. Now, a few things to think about when you're going to choose the maps, and you'll notice here at the top, you've got the name of the map, very important. You've also got a catalogue number, and right under it here, we have the scale of the map. And, you know, when I was learning to navigate, I didn't understand what that scale meant. And so to break it down into really simple language, what it means, and I'm going to open up a little page of this map here. What it means is that, let's say for every, where's that camera here? Let me find a track too. For every, here we go, here's a track. For every 1 millimeter, I move my finger along the map. So just a tiny little millimeter there, boom, there it goes. I'm moving 25,000 millimeters on the ground. So for every 1 millimeter, 25,000 millimeters in real life, IRL. So that's 25 meters. Yeah. Cool, huh? So that's scale. Now you're going to find maps for bushwalking in Australia, and I'm going to try and integrate both bushwalking and, thank you Chris for putting the Geoscience Australia link up there, awesome. So you're going to find maps in different scales. So some maps will be, who's seen maps like this before? Now this is, I'm going to give it away on this side. This is a map put out not by a government agency, but by a company called Spatial Vision, so SV, and they also do some great digital maps as well. And this is my very well-loved, torn apart, sticky taped together, scotch taped together, Kosciuszko Main Range map. This map, and it says on the front, but I won't open it because I'll probably tear it again, is a 1 to 50,000 scale map. So for every 1 millimeter I move my finger across here, I'm moving 50,000 millimeters, 50 meters in real life. Cool. So I hope that's a really good quick summary of scale. Now, when it comes to choosing, if you've got a choice for scale, I would always choose 1 to 25,000 because you get lots of great detail, right? So for every 1 mil, 25 meters. 1 to 50, sometimes that's the only thing available. Now there are also, these days, there are some wacky scales hitting the shops. There's some I've seen put out as 1 to 30,000. Again, same concept, for every 1 millimeter, 30,000 millimeters, 30 meters. So if you're going to an area with a lot of different changes in the landscape, cliffs and gullies and canyons and all that kind of thing, and steeps ups and downs, I reckon 1 to 25,000 is good, right? If you're going somewhere with less sort of change in the landscape, so maybe not part of the Great Dividing Range, you might want to be 1 to 50,000. But then again, it's really whatever is available. Alrighty, so that's scale. What the other super important thing, and this is where I come back to that comment earlier, that if you can really understand and really get into really being able to interpret everything on a map, that is the biggest key. That, and then relating that to the landscape around you. And the legend, the key. How many people buy a piece of IKEA furniture and don't read the instructions? you tried to put together the Billy bookcase and you're like, oh yeah, I can figure this one out. And then you realize you get to the end and it's not quite standing up right. The legend of your map is literally the key to the door. It's the key to understanding all the beautiful squiggles and lines and detail within your map. So big bit of advice after tonight, if you're wanting to learn to navigate, get the map of the place you go and walk the most, the place you know pretty well. You might even get the map for the place that you live. In the center of a big city might not be that helpful. There's a lot of stuff happening. But get the map where you are and read and study the fine print. It sounds like, oh, shouldn't it be logical? Shouldn't the water be blue? And shouldn't the roads be, I don't know, red or whatever? Every map is different. And I don't know if you noticed when I was holding this up to the screen, the different maps from different states. So different map makers, different cartographers, different fonts, different colors, different symbols and signs for different things on the map. So each map is totally connected to its key. So don't think it's kindergarten work. Don't think it's preschool. It's absolutely smart. Awesome. Okay, so I've talked about the scale. I've talked about IKEA. I want to now talk about the system. All right. Now here is something that, because I've got a good feeling about everyone here, you've probably heard a few terms in the past. You might have even heard them at school, right? So you might have heard latitude, longitude. Yeah? Is there anyone in the room who is a sailor or does a lot of time at sea, or flies, a pilot perhaps, or works with aircraft? And four-wheel driving is another time you might see people using latitude, longitude. So you hear the thing back at school was, oh yeah, latitude. That was like the lines going up the earth this way, like a ladder going up around the earth. And longitude were the ones that ran long around the earth. Well, I've got to say that, and I'm sure, you know, for some of you this might be news, right? That's not the system we use for bushwalking and hiking. Yeah, for outdoor recreation, as we call it. That's foot powered, yeah, or just moving at the speed of life, yeah, not moving in a powered vehicle, because the system we use, not latitude, longitude, but it's a system called UTM. It's one of those acronyms. That, is it important for us to know what the acronym means? Not really. It's handy for a couple of reasons. One is for everyone who does use apps to navigate, you're going to find in your settings for the app that coordinate settings, there's going to be something in there that's going to let you choose UTM as a setting you want to use. Now that UTM setting is absolutely connected to, and here's where I'm going to grab my Mount Wilson map again. Apart from seeing the sticky tape all over my map here, can you see those squares? So there's a grid square running across there, and there's a line running across there. And these lines, these grids, you'll notice that along the bottom, they're connected to numbers. These grids are amazing. So this universal transverse Mercator, big words, not important to know what they mean, right? It's just, what is important is to know that that's the system that we use for defining a location within navigating for hiking and bushwalking, canyoning, trail running, all that kind of thing. So not latitude, longitude. I know, right? Oh, why couldn't there just be one? Fun fact though, for those who really want to go advanced moves, do an advanced move. If you can see how there's that thick black line there, thick, oh, it's hard to do this in reverse, thick black line, and then there's white, and then it starts going black again. That is actually to define latitude, longitude on a topo map. Fancy, huh? Alrighty, so back we are with UTM, Universal Transverse Mercator. That's the system we're with. Now, cool thing, if you are smart, like you all are, and you look at your, again, because we're looking at our, always looking at our legend, at our key, you'll see this fabulous ruler along the top, yeah? So it's told us our scale again, very important to know. And then it's got this ruler, and if we look at that space there, it says that distance there is 1 kilometre, yeah? And here's the other thing. 1 kilometre is the size of every grid square. That is really faint, so I'm sorry with the lighting there. So these grids run all over the world, yeah? And that grid, 1 kilometre on the horizontal, 1 kilometre on the vertical, that's the north-south, and then the east-west. And what's the diagonal? 1 kilometre on the vertical, 1 kilometre, just to 1 decimal place is fine. Don't get excited. If there's maths teachers in the room, I see you. I see you. I was in veggie maths at school, I'd just like to say, and connect maths in space. Yeah, 1 kilometre is that grid. Amazing. Now, what that grid does is it helps us define a location, which is important, right? Because we need to be able to tell people, is that dark enough? Can you see? Okay, I'm going to do these a bit thicker. So our grids, this UTM grid, sorry about that. 1 kilometre on the east-west, 1 kilometre on the north-south. We've said 1.4 roughly. So straight away, you can look at a map and go, oh, there's a track or there's a road. It's like, oh, well, that's roughly 1 kilometre. And you can straight away start to get a very basic understanding of distance, yeah? And just to mess with your heads, fun fact, if you go to like a 1 to 50,000 map, the scale, remember the 1 to 50,000 map? So we've got less detail shown within each square. Again, really pale little square there, but I hope you can still see that. Smaller square, right? Still 1 kilometre. Amazing. Still 1 kilometre. Every grid square, 1 kilometre. Amazing. And to double check, always go back to your legend. Go back to your key. Look at that ruler up the top, just to double check. Because there's so much in navigation. What you want to do is be like that carpenter, right? That measure twice and cut once. Like double check something, check it again, and then act upon it. Okay, here's our UTM grid references. Let's say, and you saw these numbers at the top. So at the top we've got 5, 5, 5, 6, 5, 7. So I'm just going to use those same numbers. Oh, 5, 5, wasn't it? 5, 6 and 5, 7. And going up, going north, up the map, let's go with 38. And in fact, point of correction, Your Honour, point of order, Your Honour, I should actually say each number individually, 5, 5, 5, 6, 5, 7, not 56, 57, 3, 9. Okay, you get the picture. Now, this is looking a lot like the X and Y grid from school. So again, for anyone else who was in veggie maths like me, I'm sorry if you're just having, I should have given a trigger warning about that. But what these grids do is they help us define a location. So let's say, for instance, I'll make a nice easy one. Now, if you all had the Mount Wilson map, or if you had a legend in front of you, you might see a symbol that looks like that. Can you see that? I call it a soccer ball. It's actually not a soccer ball. It's a gate. It's a symbol for a gate. But again, every map can be that little bit different because map cartographers, map makers, they can just choose different things, change them. Like New South Wales, our topo maps are changing at the moment. They're getting ready to print the 2025 versions. Do you think I can get a date out of them? Anyway, our gate. So a location for this gate, Now, the easy thing is it starts, you know, we're going to start with because I'm going to meet you all for a walk, right, at this gate, all 60 of us. Can you think of anything worse than being on a bushwalk with 60 people? I'm sure you're all very lovely people, but 60? Do you know national parks have the plan of management, which actually defines, each park's different, defines how many people can go on walks and activities in it. Fun fact for the night. Sorry, I get distracted. Okay, so our location for this, we're going to start by going, oh, well, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to make you guess. You ready? It's going to be 5, 6, 4, 0. How did she get that number? So what I'm doing is I'm starting to give you a grid reference. You've got to think of it. A grid reference is just like a street address, right? So instead of saying I live at, 28 Mountain Street, Katoomba, I don't. You give a grid reference, and this reference applies just to this map, all right? 5, 6, 4, 0. So how do we know which numbers to go first? So there's a few different ways to remember. So one of them I like is the sun rises. Oh, I've skipped a point. Bear with me. These lines, they've got names. They've got names. Of course they do. They got names. In fact, these ones, and this is one of those things where the great mapping gods, sometimes I think, could you not have just made it a little clearer? Bear with me and I'll explain. These lines here that are vertical lines that run from north at the top of a map to south, even though they run from north to south, they're called eastings. Yep, they're called eastings. I know, right? Why are they called eastings? And it's no prizes for this one. These lines here, they're actually called northings, even though they run east to west, like in a horizontal pattern. And here's why. If you unlock this, it makes sense. These easting lines, 5, 5, 5, 6, 5, 7, they travel, they increase as they go to the east. So as these lines wrap around the world, because they just keep going, the number gets greater this way. So they're growing up as they go to the east. So these lines, eastings. These lines here, the number increases as it goes north. So they're called northings. So that kind of does make sense, right? So now back to where we were. The grid reference for this place, this gate, starts with 5, 6, 4, 0. Because we start where the sun rises in the east. We start with our eastings. That's kind of how I remember. Start with the eastings. Yeah, so the eastings, first number it comes to it's within this box here. Come along, 5, 6. Okay, so 5, 6 is my first part of that grid reference. All right, and then I need a northing as well. So I come up along here and I wait until I see, oh, yep, it's above the 40 number, the 40 northing. So the gate on this Mount Wilson map where we're going to meet and have a big bushwalk with now 64 people is at 5640. Now, do you remember we said how big this grid was? Yeah? That's right, it was 1 kilometre on the vertical, 1 kilometre on the horizontal, and yes, the 1.4. Oh, Ailing's going, square 2. Look at you all. Look at you all. It is 1.4. I love it, all these maths people, these maths brains. I admire you. Finding a gate within 1 square kilometre, it's a pretty big area, right? So I want to get a lot more accurate in how I can find this gate. Because let's imagine there's trees all over this big square kilometre block and this gate I've got to find it. And here's what's really cool. So these grids, they don't have them on the map, and I'll show it to you where my map went. There we go there. So we can see each grid line has got a number on it. But here's where a little bit of imagination has to come in. Because each of these grids is divided again into 10 100-metre segments. So just imagine of this line here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I'm just going to bring that closer. Yeah. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Get that right. So now what I've done is I've split this grid into 100 metre segments, right? So we know that that's a kilometre. Each of these is 100 metres. So to get more detail then, instead of having to find this gate in one big square kilometres, which is a big area, I can narrow this down and go, so 5, 6 is still my first part of the grid reference. 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 6, 5. And for my 4, 0, I do exactly the same thing. I go, that's 100 metres. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to put that, it's 5 as well. It's halfway. So 4, 0, 5. Right. Now, what's the whole point of this? Yeah, why have a grid reference? It is to define your location. So you can tell somebody, you can write notes about it. You can say, hey, send the helicopter to 565 405. There's a gate on the Mount Wilson map. Yeah. You might find a beautiful waterhole. You might find a beautiful campsite. You want to keep notes of it, mark it on your map, tell someone about it. Babe, don't share it all on the internet. Just saying. Let's not get distracted, Caro. So this is what's called a grid reference, a 6-digit grid reference, GR, and you'll see it written quite often with a GR in front of it. So if you've ever seen GR and then a bunch of numbers and you've wondered, what is that? It's a grid reference. Now, remember how I said we're part of this UTM system, this Universal Transverse Mercator. So this isn't the latitude longitude system that they use in aviation or marine, completely different system. The full UTM address, it's a big long string of numbers. So for those of you who've got a GPS device or an app on your phone, sometimes you notice if you're looking and it's defining the location where you are, it's a really long string of numbers, yeah? Like 16 different digits and a couple of letters at the front too. Yeah, so that 16 numbers defines one place on the entire planet. Pretty mind-boggling. But you know what? We are humble bushwalkers in Mount Wilson, which is a whole bunch of Wallamai National Park and the Blue Mountains National Park. And if we know we're using this map, we really only need a 6-digit. Keep it simple, yeah? So that is grid references. Now we're falling in love with maps. We know about scale. We know about the system we use, this UTM. We know about where to get maps from. Now, but we only know how to define a place on the map. There's some things that occur, and I'm just going to choose an example where they're very, very clear. Let me choose. There's someone from Tassie in the room, so let me choose. There might even be more from Tassie. Let me choose the beautiful Lake Pyman 1 to 50,000 map. Now remember what 1 to 50,000 is. Every 1 millimetre I move my finger on the map, I move 50 metres on the ground in real life. Let me look for some beautiful squiggly lines. Squiggly lines. So Right, let's see if I can get that nice. That's not very clear, is it? No, there's only a few squiggly lines. Let me go to this side of the page. There we go. Okay, so we can see a few different colors there. We've got orange and we've got grey. So I should get myself a pointing pen. Pointing pen, pointing pen. So we've got these very pale grey wiggly lines moving around here. Now, these lines are called contour lines. Now, contour lines, yay Sally, yes, yay Tassie, and Errol, lovely to have Taswegians here. Contour lines are the most incredible invention. Now, what contour lines do, and once you see them, you kind of can't unsee them. Actually, here, this spatial vision map of the main range Kosciuszko has lots of them. So all these tiny pale wiggly lines all over. And what contour lines do is they join together areas of the land that are at the same height. Let's think about that. They join together areas at the same height. Now, I've got a couple of images that I think are a really good example to help explain. And this is a photo of a beautiful piece of art by the sculptor called Anne Graham. And I'm just going to hold this up. Now, Anne Graham created this work of art, and this is only one piece. Like, this room is actually full of tables all made with these beautiful sculptures. And what they're made of, believe it or not, is woolen blankets. And this was a COVID lockdown project for her. So every one of those blankets makes up layers, right? It's almost like they're contours, because they are. So she actually looked at the map in part of, I think it's in the Gardens of Stone National Park, and she created these sculptures based on the contours. And I've got another example, and that is, here's something I prepared earlier. All right, so when you're looking at contours on a map, you're likely to be seeing straight down, right? You're looking at it like that. So you just see all these wiggly shapes. And it's only when it's created in a 3D that you realize that connection of a contour line joins together areas of land that are all at the same height. So if you imagine trying to climb up to this feature here, if they were to look a little like that on the map, so lots of contour lines very close together, and in fact what looks like a little bit of a rock climbing roof and overhang there. Ooh, that's like a 32. I honestly am not a climber. I don't know what I'm talking about. I get taken climbing badly. No, I get taken climbing well, but I'm a bad climber anyway. Contour lines, back to it, Caro. So the key takeaway with contour lines is that the closer the lines are together on your map, other way, everything's in reverse for me. Everything's in reverse for me. The closer the lines are together, the steeper the incline is. So contour lines really close together, steep. So if I had to climb up the top of here, do you think I'd want to climb up here? No. I'd start over here where the contour lines are nice and wide apart like that on my map, and I'd walk up there. And that's kind of that concept of walking with the landscape, not against it. Like walking with, making it easy. Like, why make things hard on ourselves? Yeah. So contours, you can go into a lot of things with contours. Two things. The first one, back to our beautiful maps. Which map will I pick up this time? Oh, look, it'll be Mount Wilson again, because I know where it is. In our legend at the top, you'll notice, so things are making sense now. We know what that means. Underneath, the contour interval. Yeah, contour interval, 10 meters. Now that's a really key bit of information, right? So we know that our distance, a grid square, is what? 1 kilometre, yeah. But what's the distance vertically on Mount Foamy between each of these lines? Yeah, each map is different again. So that's why referring back to that legend, the key is really critical. So on that map, Mount Wilson, each of these contour lines, you'd be climbing up 10 metres for each one. So to get to the top of that feature, it'd be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So a 50 metre high knoll. That's the first time I've used that word tonight. So a knoll, that's the name of that feature, like a little round summit. So contour lines. Now, another thing I prepared earlier, if you've got a keen eye, you might have seen this already. On my hand, yes. So using the fist here, I've actually drawn some handy ways of remembering landforms and features, yeah? So this is that where you look at the map, you see the contours, and then you relate it to the earth and the world around you. So knolls, 4 fists and knolls here, the knuckles I mean. So they appear on your map like a closed loop, not a circle. That could be a squished one, it could be weird shapes, but it's a closed loop, yeah? So I've got 4 knolls along the top. Knoll, 1 closed, oh, let me move my finger, closed loop. Alrighty, so knolls, and when you've got a ridge of knolls, like, oh, did I just say the word? When you've got a collection of knolls running in a line along a high point, this is a ridge. So quite often, like ridge is a really common word that we use in navigation, like, oh, we're going up to the ridge, oh, there's nothing better than ridge walking. It's pretty good, ridge walking, because when you're along the top, you see all around you, everything drops around, and you usually have a height as long as the vegetation is okay. So we've got these beautiful knolls along the top. Between the knolls, we have another landform. Does anyone want to hazard a guess? And not someone who's given me an answer already. Does anyone know what this feature is between the knolls? So we've got knolls, we've got a ridge. I'll wait for that one if anyone wants to throw in and try and guess what that area is, except John Carter. We know you're going to get it, John. And it's that beautiful, oh, thank you for the stars, by the way, John. That's really lovely. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. If anyone does want to throw some stars my way, I am super appreciative. So yeah, between our knolls, we've got this lovely, yes, trail hike. Oh, are you... all these people jumping in. Someone actually got it first. It was Ailing Lim. I think there's a Wild magazine coming your way. So like I said, I've got 3 to give away. Yes, so it's a saddle. It's actually, you think of it like a saddle, like a horse, and it is that shape really between the 2 knuckles. So we've got knolls, we've got saddle, we've got a ridge, joins all those along the top, and then running down, and here's where I've actually got some contours I've drawn in here. It's a U-shaped contour down a spur. So these are spurs. And some people get confused between ridges and spurs, and I used to. I total confession here. I used to think everything was a ridge. I go, oh, we're walking down the ridge to get to the river at the bottom. Imagine like that. We've got a valley, really, like be a river at the bottom, because what's water's one job? To get downhill. Yeah, so we've got, again, knolls, saddles, ridges, spurs running down from the knolls, and then between the spurs are gullies. Yep, we've got gullies. And then between the spurs, we've got gullies, yeah? So I've painted them blue with water because it's the lowest point, and the water, the rain, you've got to imagine rain falling from the top, hitting the ridge, landing in the saddle, and falling down into the gullies, into these creeks that are forming, then keep flowing downhill until you get to a river at the bottom. Now, here's the thing with spurs and gullies. Fun fact, they're a binary. They're on and off. Spur, gully, spur, gully, spur, gully. You can't have one without the other. It's true. Have a look at a map, and where you see spurs, they're beautiful, usually a U shape in the contours, U shape. In the gullies, the contour sometimes looks like a V shape, like an upside down V that points uphill like an arrow. So spurs with these beautiful rounded U shapes, tight little V's inside the gully, and then again, gully spur, gully spur, gully spur. Awesome. So now we've talked about grid references. 1 kilometre, yeah? 1 kilometre. 1.4. Oh, you guys are smashing it. We've talked about scale. We've talked about the system we use, the UTM. My hair is falling out here, excuse me. We've talked about contours. The contour interval, again, another really important reason why you want to look at that legend, the key on your topographic map. We've talked about landforms, different kinds of landforms. Now, I would love to have had photos to show you an example of each one of these things, but hey, time permitting and technology, I'd have to go to slides, and who wants that? Then another thing we're going to talk about is Yoda. I'm going to talk about Yoda. Oh. And the reason I want to talk about Yoda is because there's a rule to navigating. And it's kind of, and a reason I say Yoda instead of kindergarten, use your words, Caro, kindergarten teacher, is because it could sound a bit patronizing. It's not meant to be. It's actually the whole concept of never being lost. And that is the best way to never be lost is to always know where you are. Oh, I know it sounds sort of a Yoda thing, like the way to never be lost is to always know where you are. And this is where, and you're thinking, where is she going with this? I'm going to just go down here a bit, because now these two concepts, distance and time, because if you come and join us at the gate where we have a grid reference, we know where we're going to meet, and there's probably a road going to that gate. So maybe there's a road like that leading out there, and then it becomes a walking track or something like that. If you know where you are, if you've put that nav head on, as I talked about, if you've brought yourself into this awareness of going, okay, I'm now switching on my navigation head. I'm bringing an awareness. I've got to, in some ways, there's something about navigating. It actually takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of being really present and being very conscious of your surroundings, taking in the clues everywhere. You know, I say that we are, as navigators, we're a lot like detectives in a detective novel. We're looking for clues all around us in the landscape that tell us where we are, or give us clues that we can then apply and look at our map to see, oh, I feel like I'm standing on top of a knoll. How would it feel to stand on top of a knoll? If I'm standing on top of a knoll, everything goes down around me. Well, there's a clue. And if I know that I started at the gate, and then let's say if I knew I was walking at, let's say, 2 kilometers an hour, if I knew I was walking at 2 k's an hour, for the example, let's just say south. South. By the way, who learnt the term never eat soggy Weet-Bix? If you say yes, tell me where you learnt it. Was it Scouts? Was it school? Was it your family? Bushwalking club, friends? Never eat soggy Weet-Bix and what it means. So if you know you're walking at 2 k's an hour, and we know each one of these grids is a kilometre, and you know you're walking south, that's 1 kilometre, and that's 2 kilometres, and you know you're walking absolutely like due south. Lawrence, Cub Scouts never eat soggy Weet-Bix. Just in case you're wondering, it's northeast, southwest. It's to teach people the cardinal points, teach kids the cardinal points of a compass. So if you know you're walking 2 k's an hour due south, then you know after 1 hour of leaving the gate at, say, 10 o'clock in the morning, and you know it's now 11 a.m, you know you're there. It's kind of Yodery, yeah? So there's this concept in navigation called thumbing the map. Oh, I love that your family taught you that down. I hope I said your name right. And yes, at school. Jenny, great school you went to. So you know you're walking 2 k's an hour, and after 1 hour, you know you're there. So you're not lost, right? How good is that? Simple. Now, the time and distance thing, and this is where a lot of people these days, they find they don't wear watches. They go, oh, I use my phone for the time. If you want to improve your navigation, I think one of the best things to do is to wear a watch. Yes, there's cool things you can do with it, like, hey, if you've got a watch and you know the time, you can find north with the sun. That's kind of cool. You can also, if you always, before you make a navigational decision, if you check the time you leave, and you're doing this concept called thumbing the map. Thumbing the map. Which map will I choose for this? Will I choose the... actually, this is probably a good one to choose, because for Rogainers in the room, that is a New South Wales topographic map. And yes, the sport of Rogain, this is actually the Rogain answer sheet from this particular event. But thumbing the map means to know where you are on the map at every time. Let's imagine I'm at what's noted on the map there as checkpoint Bravo. And I know I'm walking in a northwest direction for an hour, and I'm going 2 k's an hour. Oh, I know that every grid square is a kilometre. Or where am I? So I could roughly go, well, if I know I'm going 2 k's an hour, I'm roughly up here. And so thumbing the map, which is so crucial, it's the whole Yoda thing. The way to never be lost is to always know where you are. Literally is to put your thumb on the map and follow along. And as you move along the track, as you move along the feature, so you might be walking along the top of a ridge or down a spur, or struggling to get up through the scrub and the slippery rocks and the fallen trees and the vines in the gully, as you pass different features, you see that feature on the map and you move your thumb to it. Thumbing the map. Another way of doing it is to use your compass. This is actually the one that I prefer. So I use the corner, like the edge of my compass, and just hold that to the point. Like I'll hold that onto the place I am on the map and then move that along as I go. Cool. So thumbing the map, super important. But how do you know how fast you're walking? I hear you say. Well, there was a fabulous Scottish mountaineer called William Naismith, Billy Naismith. I'm pretty sure he probably didn't go by the name Billy. Maybe his mother called him that. But William Naismith, he developed this this rule. It's now called Naismith's rule. So that's Naismith, Naismith's rule, which was for walking on flat ground. For flat ground, 1 kilometre without a pack, just average walking like you're going down the footpath in the city, flat ground, 1 kilometre, 4 k's an hour. Now, if you're me, I actually walk faster and I'm a bit more likely to do 5 k's an hour, depending on how fast I want to get to where I'm going. Some people who've got a really long and fast gait, people with very long legs, might be doing 6 k's an hour. So tend to judge it by a range. So I say, oh, you know, it's sort of 4 to 5 k's an hour is average walking speed on a flat, well-formed surface. Okay, cool. So if you take what you know of Pardon me, did you hear that burp? Excuse me while I just have some water. There's a lot of talking. If you take what you know of Naismith's rule, and then you think about the different terrain types that you're going to be walking on. So you might be going through on a fire trail. It could be a really rough and unformed fire trail. It could be a technical single track. So if there's any trail runners in the room, you'll be familiar with those terms, like technical track or a single track. So something that's as wide as a single person. Technical, it might have tree roots and boulders and little rock scrambles, that kind of thing. So obviously the pace is going to go down. So your speed, I should say, not your pace, your speed is going to go down as the terrain quality decreases. So the best way to get an accurate measure for yourself is to run a test. So actually go out into these different terrain types and time yourself. Measure out a 100-meter distance and then walk it and see how different your timing is in the different terrain types. Oh, Ben, I'm glad you're enjoying this. Alrighty, so we've talked about Naismith, we've talked about time, we've talked about distance, and just remember, distance, time, watch. So we've got these layers. It's that whole thing like driving a manual car, right? So you've got your map. I haven't even talked about compass yet, have I? Because remember what I said at the very beginning. I reckon 80% of navigation is map and awareness. Like it's that real solid, slow understanding, really methodical approach and just analysing the landscape, being in the landscape. I can sometimes start to sound a little hippie at times. I'm not apologetic about that. I love navigation because it slows me down in wild places, helps me really see the landscape, the different changes, the subtle changes. Like sometimes you're walking along and you think, hang on, I feel like I'm breathing a little heavier. The ground doesn't feel like it's going uphill, but and then you look at the map, you go, oh, I've just crossed a contour. I've just gone up maybe 2 contours, which is if you've got a 10-meter contour interval, that's 20 meters, yeah? It wasn't in my imagination. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground so far. I think it's time for a compass, yeah? We ready for compasses? We ready to take a bearing? And why do we even need a compass in the first place? Well, the classic example I like to use, going back to Mount Foamy, is to imagine you're standing on top of Mount Foamy, yeah? You're on, what's this feature called? Remember? Got 4 of them across the knuckles there. They form a ridge when they're in a line like that. Yeah, it's a knoll. My really bad dad joke is I also like to call it Shannon. That's not a joke for anyone from another country. That's one that only us Aussies are going to get. What about me? So, why do we need a compass? Well, you need a compass to tell you which way to go off the knoll. Because, yeah, let's say that gate that we're meeting at here, gosh, I could even draw contours. Wow, that'd be like, wow, who knew this could work? So there could be contours like this, yeah, going up to the knoll. Should be like that, right? Imagine it's almost like, oh, I could stretch that down and put the knoll at the 2 kilometre 1 hour mark down there. Oh, I love it when things work. We're standing on top of that knoll, and let's say we want to go down there. So that feature there, it's becoming that U shape. Remember those lines are calling that sort of shaped like a U shape? So that's becoming a spur down there. Really, and I like to think of spurs as our superhighways in the Blue Mountains. All different parts of the world, different types of terrain might be different. Spurs can be really steep and scree covered. But spurs are awesome. They can be like your ramp to go down. So imagine you're standing on top of this knoll and you go, it's heavy trees. There's trees everywhere, all over the place. How do I know? Like, I got to the top here, I came up here, but how do I know, are we going this way or this way or this way? Like, because everything goes down when you're on top of a knoll. If only I knew a way to point the right direction that I wanted to go. And that's why, that's the most common way of using a compass. Remember I said there were 3 different ways generally of using a compass, and the first and the most common one I use, and the one that most people will sort of be the first one they learn, is tell me which direction to walk in. Do I go that way, that way, that way, that way? Now, I have what I like to call comedy compass, because it's very large. And it's also comedic because it's a bit useless because you can't see through it. And what you really want in a good orienteering or base plate compass is this, what these kind of compasses are called. This is the base plate, this big plastic bit at the bottom. You need it to be see-through because you need to see the features, you need to see your map through it. But for time and for the purposes of this evening, I'm just going to show you very briefly how you use a compass to take a bearing. Now, remember how I said there was little cheats and reminders, little memory joggers to help you remember how to use a compass and do a few different things. So when I said grid references earlier, I said, the sun rises in the east for the eastings. You do that first. So here's my memory jog. In fact, I'll go through the stages first, and then let's see if you pick up what the acronym is that I'm working with. And if you've been in any of my classes, please don't break the joke and put it in the comments. Okay, here we go. Which color should I use? I haven't used blue yet, so let's use blue. So here is my map, my compass. Here is my map with my grids on it. I'm currently standing here on, can you see that? Yes, you can. Standing here on the knoll. And I want to go to, where's that red? I'm going to draw the spur going down like that. So here's some more, oh no, very steep cliff in there. Whoa, look, there's dragon's teeth. There's a serious cliff. Okay, so the direction I want to travel is coming off here, right? So here's what we do. And here's a really key thing with compass work is that you can only take a bearing in a straight line. You can only take a bearing in a straight line. Now just imagine how many turns and twists you do during a whole day's adventure. So that means you break down your whole adventure into steps, into stages, or into legs, different legs of your route. Or your route card is usually a table that you create. Again, we go into that in the courses. So here's how we do this. Find where you are. Well, I know I'm here, I'm on top of the knoll. Find where you want to go. I want to call it the nose of the spur. So I'm going to go in that direction. That's where I want to go. Okay, all right. So here's what I do. I find where I am and where I want to go. Then what I do is I align with one of the long edges of my compass. It doesn't matter which one. Pick an edge. Doesn't matter which one. And then and we align it. So find where we are, align one of the long edges of the compass, of the base plate, at the same time ensuring that this fellow person is called the direction of travel arrow. And I'll just show you what that looks like in real life. So that's this big arrow at the top of your compass. So the direction of travel arrow is pointing in the way you want to go. So in other words, you can't have it this way. It's one of the really common mistakes people make, and we've all done it. There is no shame. So going in the direction of travel, I'm here, going to here. Align, find, align. Then what I do is I rotate my compass dial or my bezel, I rotate until this orienting arrow is what it's called. Also commonly called the red shed. So you might have heard the term put red Ned in the shed. That is the red shed. So find, align, rotate until our orienting arrow, this red arrow that's printed on the dial or on the bezel is another name for it, is pointing north up the map, yeah, and is parallel, these lines here, which are either side of them. I'm just going to get the arrow out of the way. These orienting lines here are parallel with our easting grid lines, yeah. So find, align, rotate, okay, so find, align, rotate, okay, until that's parallel. Yep, they're parallel with my eastings, beautiful. Then I take off, I T for take off. Now, here's a trick for young players. Is there anybody in the room who A, does not live in Australia, or B, lives in the southwest corner of Western Australia, around sort of that Margaret River, the Cape to Cape walk down that little southwest corner of Western Australia? You've just got to not think about this for a second, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So find, align, rotate, take off. So what we do now is we take off, so we subtract from our bearing number that is dialed up in line with the direction of travel arrow. Now on a compass, you're actually going to be able to see, oh, it's really hard to see on this one. Or if I move the dial back and forth really quickly, you might see there's a fixed white line that's printed on the green ring. Yeah, you might be able to see that there. And I'm only because I'm moving it, do you see there's actually a tiny, tiny little white line right in there connected with this direction of travel arrow. This little white line in there doesn't move, it's fixed. So whatever we've dialed up here, so that's 100, that's 110, that's 120, so I'm going to call that 118 degrees, 118 degrees. Now, find, align, rotate, take off, take the compass off the map, take off, subtract this thing called, sorry, I was distracted, Ada, by your comment, me! Find, align, rotate, take off, your magnetic declination. Oh my God, what is that term? What is magnetic declination? I think for another night we might talk about the three norths, but the takeaway for us tonight is, again, I sound like a broken record. For those of us old enough to remember a record, broken, it skips and just keeps repeating itself. The super fine print. On a map, you will also have the magnetic declination written there. So that is the difference between grid north, which is where these lines go up the earth. And I usually have a big inflatable globe to demonstrate this. The difference between grid north and magnetic north. Three norths, we only need to worry really about two when we're doing navigation, which is excellent. One less thing to think about. So magnetic declination, the difference between grid north, where this points up the planet, and magnetic north, which is where the red needle in your compass points. Somewhere in Greenland. Oh, do we talk about Greenland right now? No. Okay, so find, align, find where we're going, align, rotate until your orienting arrow is pointing north, rotate, take off. So I now subtract on this particular map, made up map, I'm saying it's 10 degrees. So I'm going to subtract, go from 118 going to go down to 108. And then what I do is I lay the compass flat in the palm of my hand, because there is a technique. Compass technique is important. Lay it flat in the palm of your hand, pointing away from you like this. Dial up my 118 degrees, which is there, 108, sorry. And then I rotate my whole body around until red Ned is in the shed. Now, what does that mean? Red Ned in the shed means my red arrow, the moving one, the magnetic one that wiggles and points to Greenland, is over the top of the red shed, the orienting arrow that is fixed and printed on the base of the dial. So red Ned is in the shed, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to flip it and show you. So I will demonstrate with comedy compass. So it would be like that. Yeah. So 108 degrees, flat in the palm of my hand like that. 108. And I turn my whole body until the red needle goes there. But then again, but Caro, how do I know which way to walk? That's what my direction of travel arrow is all about. Yeah, and because I'm holding it flat in the palm of my hand like this, direction of travel arrow like here, boom, that's the way I go. Oh my gosh. Incredible. So I'm standing on top of my knoll. I've drawn, I've laid my map out, I've laid my compass down, find a line, rotate, take off, and then S for shed. Is input red Ned in the shed. Where is that direction of travel arrow going? It's pointing me down there. So I hope you got the acronym. I love a poo joke. I love a toilet joke. It's not just for the kids, it's definitely for the grown-ups as well. So farts is the acronym that I use, and it's in my book, and it's how I one of my teaching methods. And yeah, originally it came Dan Lewis, who would come on some courses with me as an assistant when I had a bigger group. He told me about the ART, align, rotate, take off, the art of navigation. I went, oh, I could remember that, but I'd probably remember farts better. So find where you are, find where you're going, align, longitude of the compass, rotate, and then take off. Direction of travel arrow, red Ned in the shed, and boom, off you go. There's been a lot we've spoken about tonight, and it is now an hour and a half in. You've been very patient. It's so lovely that you've all stayed here. But I'm going to start wrapping it up and ask for questions. So very basic overview. The best way to practice and get better at navigation is to go out and do it, is to be in the landscape. Fall in love with maps. Get yourself a map for the area that you know that you go to. I will now just put that. Okay, so here is the link to where to get different topographic maps. So this is for Australia and New Zealand. So for people anywhere else in the world, I'm sorry, but that's my bag, baby. It would be a bit remiss of me not to put up also the link to my navigation courses. So, oh yes, great question, Lula, and I will address that as well. So to answer your question, Lula, was it? Yeah, Lula, how do you practice by yourself? So for those of you who don't know me, I also am really quite involved in search and rescue. So I'm not a big fan of going out into the bush alone. It's another whole topic to talk about, maybe for another night. So I really recommend joining a bushwalking club. Now, if you're in Australia, Bushwalking Australia, maybe someone wants to put the link to Bushwalking Australia, they've got clubs and peak bodies in each state. Different clubs, sort of different groups of people. They are modernising. You might be thinking they're full of people with high pants and long socks and volleys, and you might find some of that, but there are there definitely yeah, all sorts of people in bushwalking clubs. And you know what, it's the people with the high pants and the long socks that taught me navigation and had the patience to teach me. So bushwalking clubs are amazing. But row gaining, the sport of row gaining, and I will just go row gaining Australia is the row gaining Australian. So row gaining is a sport that was developed in Australia. It's now an international sport, but it's like orienteering. So if you're familiar in orienteering, what you do is you have to navigate, and I'll pull out that example map I had. Yeah, in orienteering you navigate in order from point A, B, C, D. You have to do in that order. So row gaining, which is, here is a map from a row gain. This is, as I said, this is the answer sheet. So you're given a list of grid references. Hey, you're given a list of grid references. You're given an empty map. You plot each of these checkpoints on your map, and then you've got a set period of time to go and get as many points as you can. And here's the kicker, it's also strategy, because it's open terrain. So, well, not necessarily open, so it's untracked usually terrain. There might be a couple of tracks or fire trails going through, but each checkpoint has a different score point. So the harder ones that are maybe a long way away and technical and hard to get to, they'll have a really high score, and all the ones close to the base have a low score. So you could go, oh, even if I just go and get a couple near the home base, it's called a hash house, then that could be, you know, even if I just get 20 points, there's two 10-pointers or one flag in a weekend, awesome. So there's Paddy Palin row gains are a great one. So they run, I think, a 6-hour event, might even be a 4-hour, 6-hour event, something like that. And you have to do it in a team, so you're not alone. If you don't have a team member, the event organisers can team you up, or can try and help team you up with people. And also Row Gaining Association, they often run webinars like this and little mini training things before an event. The other thing definitely is find someone, if you've got someone that you know who is a navigator or can navigate, or a row gainer, orienteer, all those kind of things. Ask them if they're willing to help you. Now, obviously choose your friends wisely, because not everyone is a good teacher. They might be a good navigator, but they might not be able to convey the information in a way that actually makes sense. So, and to have the patience to let you learn, and in your learning style. And that's something I love about teaching navigation courses, is understanding everybody's different learning style and trying to tap into a different way, whether it be visual through, you know, Mount Foamy and drawing pictures, or getting people to do quizzes, or then in the second day we spend the whole day out in the field actually putting it into practice and seeing things and taking bearings and walking with the landscape, those kind of things. So I don't recommend going solo because it's just, the statistics are not great around people being in the wilderness alone. However, if there's an area, a track that is really popular, that has a lot of people on it, practice there. Practice in an area that has people, and actually practice doing, as I said, you can take bearings in straight lines. Practice by starting on a track and take a bearing on your map along a section of track. And then, you know, when you've done your fart and your direction of travel arrow is pointing down the track, you go, oh my gosh, look, it's pointing down the track, just like she said it would. Yeah. You can practice taking bearings from a map in the comfort of your own home. You don't have to be in the landscape to do it there. You can practice taking bearings. So as I said, get a map, get yourself a compass, a base plate compass like this. I'll put some links to, actually it's a link to a page. It's a page which is hopefully going to become redundant fairly soon, because it's a page on my website that gives extra resources and also fixes some errors that were in the printing of the 2nd edition, which is going to be fixed in this 3rd edition. Stay tuned, I'm very excited. I'm not sure if the designer's here in the room. Dan, if you're here, I'm sorry. I'm nearly finished with the image creation, the photos. I was taking more photos for it today. Yeah, so I recommend a base plate compass, a nice long one. This is a silver Ranger. The longer the base plate, the better, because that means the bigger distance you can take a bearing along. You can get some short squat ones that are not so good. And yeah, look after them. So they don't like metal, they don't like being against a mobile phone. This actually has a cross on it because it's a bit of a wonky one at the moment. This is an old compass. Are there any questions? Oh, Vicky, you've booked into my level 2 course in May. Oh, I'm so excited. So if anyone is here who's done level 2 before, Mike, I think you did. Mike, you have. New location this time. Rarely visited and incredibly beautiful in the Blue Mountains. So Vicky, I'm very excited and looking forward to having you there. Okay, any other questions? You've got my book, Deanne. Oh, fabulous. Yes, I did pronounce your right name right. Diane? Excellent. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting the 3rd edition out because I think it's going to have about an extra 10 pages or something in it. There's a lot happening. Practice on club walks. Most coordinators welcome. Yes, Errol. Bushwalking clubs. And if you go on a club walk, talk to your leader before the walk and say, hey, look, I'm trying to learn and practice. Do you mind if I just stalk you a little bit on the day and just sort of check in with you a little bit? And the big thing I would say in practicing and learning is be really gentle on yourself. Like it is something that just takes time, and that the stress of, oh my gosh, trying to do that manual car driving with all the things happening at once, the time, the distance, the bearing, the hill, all of that stuff, just maybe each time you go out, think about one concept and go, okay, this time I'm just going to focus on judging my speed of how fast I walk kilometers, or this time I go out, I'm just going to focus on being aware where the sun is. For those of us in the southern hemisphere, like it's always going to be in the north. So thinking, as you walk through a bushwalk or a hike with a group, just think, I'm turning the corner, the track is turning a corner, the sun is here, and oh wait, now the sun is behind me. Yeah, right, okay. So take one thing at a time, and yeah, be gentle, slow and methodical would be my questions. Okay, and Darren has asked a question from Trail Hiking Australia, another really good website. One question, if grid lines are 1 kilometre apart, yep, and what is it, remember 1.4 in the diagonal, how does that take elevation change of contours into account? It doesn't. So, and correct me if I have got your question wrong, Darren. That's why, So what Darren's asking, because we know that this is this knoll, is a high point. So to get to that knoll, you've walked up a hill, in fact, 10 metre contours, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. You've walked up 50 metres, elevation vertically, and then you're going to go down 10, 20, 30, down 30 metres. Over 2 kilometres and 1 kilometre. It doesn't. So the way you account for it is another part, it's like an add-on to Naismith's rule. So, you know how I said Naismith, our wonderful Scottish mountaineer friend, said that for every, let me get this right, 1 hour of walking on flat ground, 4 to 5 k's an hour. So that's flat ground. How you add on to Naismith's rule is for every 600 metres of elevation rise, you add an hour. So this is by time. So we actually calculate it by time, not by distance. So you add an hour for every 600 metres of vertical rise. And you add an hour also for every 1,000 meters of descent for burning quads, disco knees. And the other thing I like to do is also add on an hour for 5 hours of fatigue. So for every 5 hours on your feet, I also want to add on an hour. And you've brought a really interesting point to my mind, Darren, which is how often when you go to work the next day, that is for those of us who work in offices, and people say, oh, so, you know, what'd you do on the weekend, you know? And you pull out your scroggin bag and you're there having your scroggin, M&M peanuts, and dark chocolate coated coffee bean. I might not sleep tonight now. How many times do people around the water cooler say, yeah, how far was your hike? Because they want distance, right? Because that's how we think in our, sorry, I shouldn't talk with my mouth full. And go, oh, was it a 10K hike? Or was it a 2K hike? Or was it 35 Ks? Because there's this sense in our mind that somehow distance is like this really big worthy thing. But actually, I've done, I think, some of the hardest, trickiest, toughest, most challenging walks in my life have been 3Ks. My record, I think, was an area in the southern, sort of southeastern Blue Mountains. And it was sort of this big green patch on a map. Just lay out a map on a topo on a lounge room floor with a glass of red wine and start planning. And I saw this big patch of green and I'm like, oh, I've never heard stories of anyone going to this particular area. Oh, I should go check it out. So I put on a walk, but I was very careful and I planned the route and I took bearings and had a whole route plan all laid out before we went down. I knew the route that we're taking. But the only people I accepted on the walk, so this was with the Bushwalking Club, was people who are used to really shitty off-track scrub with no, and like exploratory. So that's an exploratory walk. That's the stuff that I really love, where you're going somewhere that you've got no beta, as the climbers would call it, no information around what to find or what you're going to expect. And I think the record was it 200 meters in an hour, something like that. Like it was that steep. I knew it was going to be steep because I read the book before I saw the movie, the contours, but the vegetation was thick, vines, lawyer vine, something I call wall vine. So it's like vines everywhere. Classic example, living it up in the slow lane. Great name, by the way. South Coast Track, the Ironbounds, 12.5 hours for 12 Ks. And actually, I reckon the going up is the easier part. Coming down, where you've got not only wet and slippery, big, steep, rough, uneven, natural earthen or mud steps, which are all intertwined with tree roots and rocks and boulders and everything. And you kind of like, it's a full body experience. So yeah, that's a really long answer to your question, Darren. So yeah, the 1 kilometre distance on a map does not account for the distance of going up over something and then coming down within that kilometre. That's why we use time to judge things. Yes, the Western Arthurs, another classic example of really tough terrain, hard, grade 5. So some people say there's 6. I might say there's 6 sometimes. The Australian walking track grading system. So 5 being the hardest, and yeah, 1 being very easy, very easy. Yes, Julie, great question. Thank you, by the way. Thank you for your thanks. As you can see, I really like teaching nav and trying to make it easy. And because I used to struggle with it, and because I just felt I wasn't getting concepts, so I love teaching it. Are there any other questions? Have I forgotten anything? Errol, yes, I'm looking forward to putting out the 3rd edition. I'm excited actually. There is all the maps are being updated. So at the moment, not only am I still making some tweaks and creating more diagrams, I'm replacing all the maps and getting all the permissions from all the different map publishers and government bodies from around, not just Australia, but the world. I've got some global maps in there too. So that kind of stuff takes a bit of time, as I'm sure you can understand. What difference does it make being in the... Oh, great. Thank you, Kathleen, for reminding me. Even though for some reason, your avatar just popped up. I see it doesn't look like you're from Western Australia, but let me tell you. And I have a diagram for that. I have a diagram. Okay, so as I said, our acronym for everywhere else in Australia, except the southwest corner of Western Australia, and I'm just going to bring it close. Bring it back. Okay, so we can see a thick green line running through southwest Western Australia. Everything to the east has got red lines on it. And you'll see a number that is the magnetic declination. Where am I going here? Where's the camera gone? There it is. Yeah, so that number there, which I can't see because I'm needing my multifocals. 10. Yes, so I said 10. Our magnetic declination for the Mount Wilson map was 10. So that's the difference between grid north and magnetic north, 10 degrees. A little bit, right? Again, this is getting into those concepts of the different norths. And also, the thing that blows my mind is this huge, amazing planet that we stand upon is always moving and shifting. We have these magnetic plates, you know, things shifting in the earth all the time, constantly moving. Oh, by the way, I'm just reading this at the moment. Amazing. If you're looking for a book to blow your mind with beautiful things, it won the Booker Prize last year. Super beautiful, super lovely, easy to read. And it's about 6 astronauts in space, 24 hours in space, circling around the globe. So you get those sort of big global things. Sorry, again, I get distracted. Back to the diagram. Sorry, Kathleen. All around the world, if you pull up your map that says the magnetic declination on it in tiny, tiny print. Tiny print. If I'd been a map maker, bigger. That number, and I said 10 for where the Blue Mountains is, which is this red line with the 10 on the red line there. Different everywhere in the world because of this incredibly amazing planet that we live upon. And as this red line, as you move further towards this green line across southwestern and Western Australia, that green line's 0. So you F for find, you align, you rotate, you actually don't subtract any declination. It's on a 0 line of difference between grid north and magnetic north. But when you cross the green line, you don't subtract, you add. You add. And as you can see in the world, so anything that's got blue lines on it, you're going to add magnetic declination. And if it's red, you're going to subtract. And if it's on a green line, don't do anything. So that's kind of starting to dive into bigger concepts you can see take a little bit longer to explain. Yeah, I love diagrams, I love visual things, and I love this planet that we're on. How incredible. Okay, are there any other questions? Kevin, be great to see you there. Kate, love. Hope you can join us in Boona. That'd be great. Such a nice part of the world. My goodness. I think I've covered all the questions, and it's time for my dinner. It's nearly 2 hours now. Lots of lovely comments there. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I'd love to see you at a course one day. My courses run with a day in the classroom, so it's basically a day of me rabbiting on like this, but with some interactive stuff. We get up and we move around, we tell stories, and then a full day in the field, putting it all into practice. So yeah, there's a level 1 and a level 2, as someone said they're coming to, which will be very exciting. I need to actually go and do a recce, a second recce. I've been there once, so I need to go back again. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. So good night from Gundungurra and Darug country here in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales, Australia, where I'm living at about 1,000 meters of elevation, big hills, and yeah, see you later.